All right, I'm here with Jan Zimmerman, the chair of the Missouri Gaming Commission. We're here to talk about really just a month in review, the first month of sports wagering being legal online and in person in Missouri. Just to start, before we dive deeper into numbers, how are you feeling?
We're really encouraged, and I know you are going to talk a little bit about the numbers as we go a little bit further on, but we're very encouraged by the number of bets that, and these are numbers obviously from December. We went live on December 1st and of course started gathering that information for the month of December with the idea that we'll always be able to provide those numbers by the end of the following month. So you and your viewers should always have access to that information, for the previous month. But we were very encouraged by the numbers, both revenue and taxes, obviously paid by those providers, as well as number of wagers.
Okay, yeah, a lot of activity. The first thing I noticed, without diving too deeper into the fiscal numbers, is just how much of a discrepancy there was between people, you know, participating online as opposed to in person in the casinos. A lot more people taking part mobily, of course, like that means everybody across the state could. So I assume that was expected.
It was, and certainly, the retail licensees, those casinos, would love to have those individuals come in and use the sports book. A number of them created very nice build outs of sports wagering areas within the casinos, and I know that they would love to see them come in, but. The convenience, especially this time of year, if you don't have to get out and go someplace physically, in the cold and the snow, then we felt like that was to be expected.
Of course. So let's see. We'll dive into the numbers again in a second, but it's hard to go into something like this, I'm sure, and have a ton of expectations because I can imagine something like this is going to be pretty unpredictable. But what were some of those, maybe expectations or um, hypotheticals that you were entertaining going into this month?
Well, I know that there was a lot of question, especially leading up to the vote. At the end of 2024, in November of 2024, there were other jurisdictions, of course, people, not just news media, but the public and voters, concerned about a number of things. Concerned that that would create more problem gambling. We've talked a lot about mental health, in the months that we've been preparing the rules, but also, what if the revenue is not, what is to be expected, and looking at, other states that have had sports wagering for, a number of years, that maybe were disappointed in the results, and so you are at 100% correct that we really didn't know what to expect. We prepared, and the staff is amazing, and they do an amazing job, preparing those rules and getting us ready for the go live on December 1st. But, as far as, what we would know to be true, we really just had to experience that for ourselves. And so as we go forward, and we get, more information, more statistics, more data, about how it's working in the state of Missouri, we're watching it really closely.
Okay. Now I do want to talk about the revenue report, the statistical report that goes over each location or entity. But before I dive into the numbers that I saw that, you know, popped out to me, what
I'm on a call. Sorry. Sorry.
no worries, no worries. I get it. I've got a noisy newsroom out back behind me.
Okay.
So I get it. So before we dive deeper into the things that I saw, what did you and your staff notice that popped out to you?
You mean as far as the numbers
Yeah.
that you're looking at? Well, and the numbers are pretty clear, and I don't know if that. I mean, what you're looking at obviously is public information. But as you're looking at, and we certainly, myself and my fellow commissioners, certainly questioned the staff about, why one entity, the taxes would be way up and another entity, the taxes would be way down, basically a loss, if you want to call it that. But, in talking with the staff and asking lots and lots of questions, they have to, they have to provide us, with all of the answers to sometimes are probably silly and repetitive questions. But as and this is in the Constitution. This is language that was part of the constitutional language, is that promotions for those providers, and whether it's a retail license or a mobile license, promotions are deducted off the top. And so the 10% tax that is part of that language, that happens after those promotions are taken out. So all of your viewers, I'm sure, are familiar with advertisements where a provider, a mobile license, provider might say, $5 of betting gets you $250, worth of play. And so those promotions that are given to, people who have those platforms or use those platforms to sports wager, those promotions are removed off. And so, when you see that variation between the taxes collected from one versus another, a lot of that has to do with promotions.
Yeah, and promotions was something that I kept in mind because I mean, you saw, let's see, the top three sports books in terms of use. I'm going to go to mobile because that's a bigger number here.
Sure.
DraftKings, FanDuel, Bet365. That's not very close at all. And they uh, the total handle from that, a lot of money, but the deductions were more so. The only one that actually generated taxable revenue was Bet365, and even that was only 300,000. And then we're talking hundreds of millions that were wagered.
Right,
So
right.
those promotions, I imagine that was a part of it, but some of those are still into this fiscal month continuing to offer those promotions. Do you see any long-term impact from this?
Well, sure, and a lot of that will depend on, I mean, you hit the nail on the head, as you continue to watch, and promotions is something that all of the MGC staff is very familiar with, because the casinos offer promotions. They want to encourage people to come to the casino or use that sports wagering platform or that betting platform. And so promotions is just sort of part of the doing business for folks. And so we'll be interested, I'll be interested, and my fellow commissioners, in seeing how promotions impact the revenue and the tax going forward, especially in different types of sporting seasons. And so, of course, we started December 1st, but you're drawing kind of to the close of football season, and certainly the Super Bowl coming up in a couple of weeks. And so I'll be interested now, as baseball starts and basketball, and how is that going to look as far as different types of sports and the impact that will have on wagers overall.
Of course. And, you mentioned the Super Bowl coming up, but anymore with how big sports have become, it's like the sports season, especially the sports betting season, is pretty much around the clock. I mean, the Super Bowl, you have March Madness coming up right after that, where you have 64 games in the span of 2, 3 weeks. 64 teams anyway. But you have all sorts of baseball over the summer. We have the World Cup here in the States. There's a lot of activity going to be happening, but with that, maybe promotions and stuff. But do you think this year will be a good indicator of how things will go moving forward?
I do, and of course, I lost count on how many interviews I did, in leading up to December 1st, and sports wagering, and people certainly were wanting me to, maybe make a guess, make an educated guess. And I said, we're just not going to know until, we get some experience under our belt. And so, yes, I feel like you're exactly right that, because there are sporting, different types of sports, obviously, and different sporting events, like, playoffs, the World Series in baseball and all of those things that are happening throughout the year, that we'll get a good feel for what it's going to look like for the state of Missouri going forward, I think, based on what we see in this first year.
Of course. And I do want to just clarify for people who aren't familiar, because this kind of got lost in probably the excitement, the anticipation, but the tax is 10% on the winnings going towards education, correct?
Yes, going toward mental health, and then education as well.
Right. And that would be like problem gambling, gambling hotline, 1-800-GAMBLER, that stuff.
Yes, yes.
Fantastic. I do want to touch on mental health for a second while, because we brought it up a couple times. But what has, how has your office and these platforms that you license, how have they taken account mental health in this process?
Well, thank you. Thank you for asking that question, because I do want to sing the praises of not only our folks, our staff, once we were we became familiar with the language of the initiative petition, and looking at what impact, that additional funding, that money that's going to be, funneled into mental health for things like problem gambling. Our staff was proactive in reaching out to those folks, to make sure that they understood what that was going to mean. We're not going to tell them how to spend the money, obviously, but, to make sure that they knew that, there could be significant funds coming their way for things like problem gambling, depending on, how successful sports wagering became in the state of Missouri. And so our staff has been working with them from the beginning, even before we went live, and making sure that, they had a good understanding of what those additional funds might mean to programs and operations and all of those kinds of things. And then, I also want to at least give recognition to the sports wagering platforms, those mobile licenses, those folks like DraftKings and Circa, who came to us and did their presentations. When we were looking at the untethered licenses, the initiative petition language said that we could grant two of those licenses, which ultimately ended up being DraftKings and Circa. They did presentations for myself and fellow commissioners and the staff. And I was incredibly impressed with all of them that talked about services that they offer, as part of their platforms, that will address, the potential of someone having problem gambling or a gambling addiction. They have cooling off software. They have, ways that people can take themselves out of the mix and not be able to use the platform for a period of time. And so I really was impressed with all three of them as they presented to us, talked about those programs and those services that they offer to their members.
Yes, absolutely. And the platforms, there are some really cool features out there now because I took
Yeah,
time
there
out.
are. There are.
People,
I'm not a gambler, but I was really impressed.
yeah, and I mean, I partake here and there because I am an avid sports fan, and it was just cool to be able to say, hey, why not? Let's see what happens and be a
Sure.
part of that fun. Of course, responsibly, but looking on those apps, I saw some really cool features. Like you
Hmm.
mentioned DraftKings, and this is not a plug, but they have like a budgeting tool
Hmm.
within their application, and a lot of these other sports books have those things as well, and that's really comforting to see.
Well,
Um,
because it means that they are aware, and they are, proactively looking to, at least provide that service to their customers. So yeah, I was impressed that all of them, are taking steps to at least address that.
of course. Now, I do want to talk about this adjusted gross revenue number that I'm seeing. So that AGR and the total revenue detail report,
Oh, let me
20.8.
see. Let me see here.
Yeah, I'll let you pull that up. No worries.
Let me pull it up here. Okay. So it's not the monthly financials, is it the sports wagering revenue?
So I suppose yeah, the sports wagering revenue detail report. It's the at month end December
Okay,
2025.
yeah, I have that
Yeah.
one.
So the total gross revenue, what that's 543 million, but that's
Hmm.
gross. You still have to take the other things into account. 437 paid out in winnings, 437 million, but 563 million in deductions. That would be that promotional
Hmm.
uh, spending typically. So 20.8 million in red, so negative 20.8 million in adjusted gross revenue.
Yes.
So what does that mean for this month in the fiscal year when it comes to the activity and the money moving around?
Well, the explanation, as we ask the staff that same question, the explanation is something that I mentioned earlier that you had, certain sports wagering platforms, whether they were the mobile or they were the retail, because, I believe that obviously the retail didn't do as well as the mobile. Not
Right.
surprising, like we mentioned, but that as you are looking at the promotions and who is deducting that off and who is paying taxes, that $20 million shortfall is I'm not going to say, I may not say this right. That $20 million shortfall is those platforms that were not had more obviously had more promotions, were paying out, and so there wasn't that money being paid in tax. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
It kind of reiterates what we talked about before. But one other thing I saw is that there's still collectible sports wagering tax from this. Let's see, for the in-person, about let's see, almost 89,000, and then for the mobile there was uh, let's see, a little over 432,000. So is with everything else still considered, is that going to be collected? Like, is there still money flowing in?
Yes, yes. And one thing that's important to, I think important to share, because anytime you see something in the red, you think, oh my gosh, this is not working. That during this initial launch period, the state received more than $8 million in total revenue, which was about a little over 520,000 in wagering taxes, but $7.5 million from the licensing fees for the individuals and the retail locations, paying in to get a license. And so, when you look at $8 million that came in, for that month of December, that's not bad.
Yeah, no, not bad at all. So yeah, again, the numbers are like they make sense when I'm going through and looking through, but when you see big negatives in the tens of millions, you have to bring up questions and at least see, despite still
Sure.
seeing the figures in the positive in the sports wagering tax. And again, this is just month one, but still some promise ahead. What are you hoping for? Not, and I'm not asking you to predict or list
Thank you.
expectations
Thank
here.
you for
I
not
didn't want,
asking me to predict.
yeah, no, 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 no. You're not Nostradamus. We're not, we're, and I'm not asking you to be, but I, what are you hoping for in the coming months? Like, what are you hoping to learn or see or, anything along those lines in the coming months?
Well, I mean, for me personally, and I would never speak for the staff, but I would like to see everybody to be in the black. I mean, I want, all of those 16, 8 retail licenses and 8 mobile licenses. Once all of the promotions, kind of even out and all that, that everyone is at least paying something in that 10% tax to the state. Whether
Of
it's a
course.
huge number, but I want to see, everybody paying, the 10% tax that was agreed on in the constitutional language.
Of course. And I do want to ask about the taxes and how those are going to flow through and what Missourians can expect. Will those come out during tax filing time in the spring? How will that work?
Well, you are way in the weeds as far as me being a commissioner, and the staff, our audit staff and our compliance staff, have years of experience. Obviously, gaming has been in Missouri for over 30 years. With how does the money, come from the taxes? It comes to us, and then it flows out to, the agencies and the organizations like mental health or like education, flows through us, just like the casino tax, supplements veteran services. And so they have 30 years of experience making sure that that money goes to the right places. And so, I have no worries about that at all.
Okay, all right. Well, I won't push further on that. As you mentioned, I was a bit in the weeds there, but when curious, you've got to at least ask. So
Absolutely.
I think that does it for my line of questions when it comes to this. Really cool to see these numbers. I really appreciate you taking the time. Is there anything else about this past month, the months going forward, that you'd like to talk about?
Nothing other than, again, I never want to miss the opportunity to give a plug to the staff. And I think that the average person, because I know, I'm not a better, I don't gamble, but to see the amount of detail and the attention and these folks at the Missouri Gaming Commission just are an amazing bunch of folks. And there is, it is so detailed and so critical to make sure that every dollar is accounted for. And there are so many charitable organizations, whether it's the veterans or it's education or it's mental health, that are the beneficiaries of gambling in the state of Missouri. I think I went on the record and said I hope that sports wagering is hugely successful because I love to see that money go to education. And so, yes, that's going to be my hope going forward. And I have such immense confidence in our staff that I know that they'll be making sure, and they'll be keeping us, up to speed, as we go along. So, yeah, we're going to be watching it really closely.
Okay, and I'll be following along too, and I'm sure we'll be catching up in the near future. So best of luck to you. And Jan, thank you again for taking the time today.
Absolutely. Thank you, Trey. I appreciate it.